King Charles and Queen Camilla stepping onto the top of the stairs as they make their way down for their formal arrival here in the United States, the start of their 4-day visit there at Joint Base Andrews, making their way down those stairs with plenty, Monica, as you say, on their plate. Let's listen in for just a couple of minutes. You are seeing Monica Crowley there, the U.S. Chief of Protocol, as well as Christian Turner, the British ambassador to the U.S., as you see Camilla there greeting we believe, the children of some of the British military families living in the U.S. as the king walks over as well, accepting that bouquet of flowers. This is just the first of a couple of arrival ceremonies. There will be one at the White House as well before a private tea between the king, the queen, the president, and the first lady at the White House, Monica. We've talked about some of the issues that are on the plate of the king as he arrives for, as you know, what would typically be a ceremonial visit. One of them, of course, hanging over all of this is the scandal related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, after King Charles's brother, Andrew, had his royal title stripped under intense pressure over his ties to Epstein, the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, finding himself embroiled in controversy after his appointment of a now former official who had ties to Epstein as well. Monica, we don't expect King Charles to meet with survivors or to address that in a formal setting, but it's entirely possible he may get a question shouted to him, perhaps, by some of the pool of reporters traveling with the president.
Certainly, Hallie, we will be around him today and tomorrow, and I do think that that is a very distinct possibility. Typically, when King Charles and Queen Camilla have been met with similar questions, they have tended to ignore them, but it doesn't mean that the question won't be hanging out there as a very relevant topic and backdrop to all of this significantly and in connection overall to the Epstein story. It was First Lady Melania Trump who brought that back to the top of headlines just a couple of weeks ago when she called a surprise announcement and came before cameras and decided that she wanted to distance herself publicly for the first time in a very remarkable way from the late sex offender, saying that she had no ties to him beyond traveling in the same social circles decades ago. But it is certainly a situation where you have the First Lady still answering some questions on that front, in addition to President Trump potentially answering questions, as the First Lady called for some of those survivors of Epstein, some of his victims, to come before Congress potentially for an open hearing to share their own stories. And that is a question that could be presented continuously to this White House as well, and to King Charles and Queen Camilla, Hallie.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.